Okay guys, welcome back to an episode of Schofield Weld. In this episode, I am going to be talking about, I want to do a question and answer episode with you guys. I need you to fill the comments full of questions. What do you have questions on as far as from traveling to welding to being on the road to, growing a business, how to start on a business, whatever it is. Leave a comment down at the bottom of this video. Would love to get to them. They're going to be lightning questions, fast, okay? So if you need a whole episode, you can leave it down there, but it probably won't get answered until a later date. But as far as like quick questions, whatever, let me know, all right? So anyways, we're going to read some questions or no?
Yeah.
Are we? Okay, so Miggy Y347 asks, he says, do you recommend going to welding school first or just getting on as a helper? I would say anymore, the way I started it with the welder helper side of it, it's a lot tougher to do nowadays because the oil and gas is kind of shut down. Everything's going to kind of green energy at the moment as far as this presidency goes. Maybe the next presidency, the oil and gas will kick back up and there'll be a chance for helpers. I would say if you want to learn how to weld, go to welding school, but study your welding schools. Make sure that these guys are going to teach you what you need to be learning. So, pipe. Okay, please, for the love, go to a pipe welding school. If you can weld pipe, transitioning to structural, now don't get me wrong, structural is pretty difficult, but if you can weld something round that's all positions, then you can usually go to something that, is structural and you can weld it. So make sure it's a pipe school if you're gonna do it. Cole Brewer 5950, he asked, I can't run a low-high overhead. What am I doing wrong? A lot of it is arc length. As far as arc goes on an overhead LH weld, tight. I mean, we're talking a very tight arc. Problem with coming down on it is it starts to get sporadic, basically. And then you start dropping big BBs, things like that. The other thing is your temperature, depending on what size rods you're running. If you're blowing huge sparks out and this thing's just dropping fireballs on you, turn it down and shorten your arc. And then your breathing. You wouldn't understand until you look at a weld, but as you're sitting here overhead and you're breathing, you're doing this the whole time. And you're long arcing, short arcing, long arcing, short arcing. And you'll see it in your weld as your weld droops and then gets tight, and then droops and gets tight. So that would be my suggestion on that. Arc length, your breathing, and temperature. Heat. Okay, Brandon Brungard, 9462. He says, 18 years old, Central Pennsylvania, and I'm trying to look to be a welder helper. I've Googled stuff to try to find places hiring, but just couldn't find anything. Any tips? Yeah, oil and gas, as far as being a welder helper, it's pretty tough because it's pretty tight knit. It's quiet. Nobody really says a whole lot. It's really just in the community is how you find the work. And that all comes from contact. So what I would suggest is Googling oil contractors, like oil construction contractors maybe. I don't know. It'd be in the wording on how you word it. Because you're not going to go to Phillips 66 and say, hey, can I be a welder helper? Like, they're not the ones doing the work. They're the ones giving the work out, right? That's how that works. I would suggest if you really want to do it, this is the route you want to go with being a welder helper. Instagram, pretty good place to be. I'm sure they just get beat up on welder helpers asking for work and whatever else. So it's kind of a tough situation. But if you can find a contact that knows that contact, maybe a LinkedIn profile or something that you can start connecting the chain to them, you have a better chance that way. And then if you show up on jobs, if you know where a job is, you can always hire out as a labor hand and then move into a welder helper position. So anyways, just be willing to work and get into that situation. Google sometimes ain't always the best to be a welder helper. Oh, Michael Suggs, he asked, what kind of weld or most weld, I'm guessing, what's the most common pipeline weld? Downhill or uphill? Trying to get my way to the pipeline. So, most of your pipeline stuff, which underground, when I was pipelining, everything we did was downhill. It was a 70 plus or a hippie or an arc 80 or, you know, most of your stuff's going to be downhill. Everything I did was, like I said, it was arc 80, 70 plus, hippie rod, things like that. But, and with a 5P plus root. I have heard, and I personally haven't done this, but a lot of these contractors are going to a LH. So downhill root, LH, so 7018 on everything above ground. So that's, just being able to do both is going to be beneficial. So want to call in B3916. He says, you still make the big money pipeline welding, or is that dead? I saw some guys with those welding bugs, the robots, and it's got me worried. As far as mainlining goes, yes, there's still money in it. There's a lot of logistics that go into using robots to weld pipelines together. Number one, very little wind, so you have to provide massive amounts of hooches for everybody, depending on how many guys and how big a pipeline you've got to run. Usually those welding bugs are going to be on like big lines, right? Like we're talking, this thing can weld it out in half the time it takes 2 dudes to weld it out. So it's going to be on like really big lines. But that being said, they've also got these traveling hooches that will set over the pipe and weld them out. But as far as like your little main lines, I'm talking like 24 inches, kind of pushing it a little bit. I've done a lot of 24-inch main lines, but you can start getting robots on stuff like that. But 24 inch and down, your flow lines, you're just kind of your little lines as far as that goes, and you're not like cross-country main lines. Like cross-country main lines are gonna be, they want that thing welded out as quickly as they can get it welded out, right? So you're like 2, 4, 8 miler lines, they're gonna just, normally they're just gonna weld it out by hand. So you can still make money doing stuff like that. There's money in welding with bugs too. I mean, it's a lot less hard on you, that's for sure. Okay, so Will Green 3470, he asked, how did you get put onto the rig welding or oil field welding? Like, how did you know to go from Iowa to Wyoming, or you guys are now, or where you are now? So I started in Texas. A lot of people don't know this. I was 17, I moved down to Texas, and I was a 2-year-old cutting horse trainer. That's what I did. I love training horses. Training horses is something that I strive to do until I realized there's no money in it. And I was sitting there trying to figure out the next step, and the guy that I roped with that was down there, his brother needed a welder helper. And so I quit training horses and I went out as a welder helper, and then did that for about 3 months down in Dallas, and decided I was going to go to welding school. Went to welding school for a semester, hated it. It was not what I wanted to do as far as going to school and paying to go to school, which is not a bad thing, guys. Like, don't get me wrong, this is my own personal thing. But then I went back out as a welder helper to get paid to learn. It was a lot longer route, little bit. The work experience was way greater than the school could have provided you, but as far as the skill level and learning how to weld good and what was expected really was not what the school could have provided. So there's 2 different gives and takes on that, but that's how I got into it, and it was literally just dumb luck. I'd heard about welding, but I always thought welding was like a $18 an hour job that was like max, right? You're in a shop. I thought that's all you did, and so I didn't want nothing to do with it. And then when they told me what I could make in a week, I decided that I'd be done horse training for a while. So anyways, that's how I got involved in rig welding. It was just dumb luck. So MIG Y347.
He'll put back in.
Says, man, you're killing it with the videos. Literally my favorite channel. Do you need experience to get a helper position? So thank you very much. So anyways, guys, we try to make it a good channel, something that you can learn on, something that is slightly entertaining, but more if you want to better your life, this is the place you want to come to, right? This is what I'd like this to be. But as far as getting experience as a helper, that would just be who you go to. As far as like depending on how good a relationship you really got with the guy. Like if you're family, he's not gonna really expect you to be, you know, to understand what you're doing, right? But if you're off the street and he's on a main line and he's trying to hurry, he wants somebody that's got experience. It's just kind of a give and take kind of deal. So it's kind of how good is your relationship with this person, and then who do you have to back you really to call this guy and say, hey, yeah, you should get this guy. He's a good dude, no experience, but he works hard, he's willing to learn. And if you have a position for him, which sometimes the fab position is better for inexperienced helpers because it's not near as fast paced. Like it's fast, but it's not near what a main line would be, where you need somebody that's got a little more experience. It's not hard to get the experience. It's within a week you should know how to be a welder helper as far as being on a main line, because it's the same thing over and over again. But as far as getting on a position, that would just be depending on how close in proximity you are to that person, right? If I have a brother that wants a welder helper job and he's never done it, I'm probably gonna hire my brother, right? But if I'm on a main line and I need somebody that's fast, I want somebody that's experienced. All right, guys, well, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And like I said, leave some questions down at the bottom. We're gonna start getting into fresh questions, fresh things. Maybe you guys have different questions now that the YouTube channel has actually grown to this point, from where you guys had seen me as a welder to now we're actually running the company, right? So maybe you have questions between that span. So anyways, everybody be blessed. We'll talk to you here in a bit. See ya.